In my video on the importance of animals to regenerative agriculture, I talked about the importance of animal grazing for the health of the land and the importance of properly managing that grazing. In this video, I will explain what the important questions to ask about a dairy product are to better ensure that the animals have been grazed on land and that their grazing has been properly managed. Over time, I will conduct a series of product reviews on a wide variety of products that attempt to answer these questions as thoroughly as possible. I would also encourage you to consider trying to answer these for yourself if there is some product you are interested in. To this end, I intend to keep the questions as simple as possible. To determine whether any grazing animal has been allowed to freely graze on open pastures for most or all of the time, there are two similar questions we have to ask. 1. Were the animals grass-fed? And 2. Were the animals pasture-raised? These two might seem to be asking the same thing. However, in the early days of grass-fed beef being available, a common method of doing this was to keep the animal in a feedlot and just feed them harvested grass or even grass pellets. In this way, the company could claim that the animal was 100% grass-fed, even though it had never seen a pasture for a day in its life. Similarly, one could fence a few animals into a pasture that was heavily overgrazed and then feed the animal mostly grain while claiming that the animal is pasture-raised. In order to avoid these kinds of tactics, it is important to ask both questions. Another issue to watch out for is to make sure a grazing animal is both grass-fed and grass-finished, or equivalently, that it is 100% grass-fed. Sometimes the company will feed an animal grass most of its life, but then put it in a feedlot for the last few months where it only eats grain. Such meat is nutritionally indistinguishable from an animal that has lived its whole life in a feedlot. To determine whether a company has taken any interest in properly managing the grazing of the cattle, the best question to ask is, was the animal rotationally grazed? This is the most basic step towards proper management of animals, and even this can be hard to find an answer to. Some companies simply don't say, and other times you have to dig deeply into the requirements for some third-party certification to find the answer. Some will claim very generically that they take steps to make the animal grazing as environmentally responsible as possible, but more and more companies are aware that consumers are concerned about these issues and are increasingly likely to provide more of the details where they are easy to find. There are more questions we could ask about rotational grazing, but anything further is dependent on what the local environment is like. When asking questions about how often the animal visit a particular field or how densely packed they are within a given field, the best answers will vary a great deal based on the kind of environment the animals live in and will be subject to variation from one year to another based on the particular conditions in a given year. There are many other questions we could ask, such as whether any seeding of the pastures is done with no-till methods, or how densely packed the animal herd is, or how well suited the animal is to the local climate. In my product reviews, I will address questions like these if the information is available. However, in the interests of practicality, just answering these three questions demonstrates the company definitely has some interest in pursuing ecologically better standards while also keeping the model relatively simple. If you like this video, please feel free to hit the like button and consider subscribing. You can find me on Facebook. The link is in the description below.